Today on CityCast Nashville, now that our city is officially a Michelin city, how should we act accordingly? Nashville scene food writer Chris Chamberlain joins us to break down what that really means for locals, tourists, and dare we say, influencers. Plus, we're only a few weeks into 2026, and we're already mourning some beloved restaurant closings. It's Thursday, January 22nd. I'm your host, Marie Cecil Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Chris Chamberlain back at CityCast Nashville, but not for Hot Chicken Week or Taco Week. Something completely different.
We are utterly without a week this week. This is a little personal navel-gazing I did in the scene last week.
You wrote an article titled, "What Does It Mean to Be a Michelin City?" And in it, you seemed like you needed to get out some grievances. What do you need to get off your chest, Chris?
They're not grievances per se, but let's just say there's a little bad behavior.
Nashville's been naughty?
A lot of that stems from the fact that I hate lazy advertising. I was in the advertising business for a long time, and when I see people just not know what they're talking about, that always bothers me. I want everyone to do better.
All right, so what caught your eye and what inspired this article?
So in this particular case, it's a new hotel downtown, and I won't call them out. You can read the article if you'd like to. And it's got people that I really respect working on it. But they claimed in their ad copy that there are 12 Michelin star restaurants within walking distance of their hotel. That's where we need to start talking about what does it mean to be a Michelin city. It is very arcane. It's not the easiest thing to understand. But we have 3 Michelin starred restaurants, not Michelin star restaurants, Michelin starred restaurants in Nashville. And even those 3 would be a tough walk from downtown. If you really wanted to walk to 12 Michelin star restaurants, you would have to walk to New Orleans. So I'm not seeing a bunch of bachelorette parties peddling their way there on a tavern.
Okay, so Nashville only has 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. Those are Bastion, Locust, and the Catbird Seat, each with 1 star. Now that they're officially starred, how should we proceed as diners?
Well, one thing that I think is important to notice that is if you look at the list of restaurants that received a star in Nashville, restaurants that received what they call the Bib Gourmand Award, means good food at a good price. And then you look at who was a recommended restaurant, which is kind of the long list. The recommended restaurants would be the ones that are probably next in line to earn a star. They're being tipped by the Michelin inspectors that keep doing what you're doing, do it a little better, and you might win a star. But what I love about all these restaurants is that to a name, they are all independent local restaurants or they're owned as part of a local restaurant group. And that's a big deal. You'll notice of all these great restaurants that were recommended, none of them are part of a group that came from Chicago or Detroit, Las Vegas, the ones that keep moving into all the good spots in Nashville lately. So we've got to support our local restaurants. And I think Michelin was doing that for us. They'll give you hints like we recognize the local talent you've got, and if you want it to stick around, you better do it too.
Is there a kind of etiquette that we should follow now that we are a Michelin city?
Well, you need to understand that it's going to be really hard to get a reservation to any place that gets a star because there's a lot of people that just collect stars as a hobby. I had an inkling that Bastion might win a star, and I snuck in and got a reservation for right after they got announced. And I don't know that I'll be able to do that again for a while, but you're going to have to plan ahead if you want to go to any of these restaurants. But that's great. That's what we want them to do. We want them to be busy. We want them to make some money and have more little baby restaurants.
I have not been to any of those 3. I'm just truly missing out here, it seems. So I'll be making those reservations far in advance. But I want to just address also something that I've been seeing in town as far as etiquette goes. The influencer culture here in Nashville. If I saw an influencer at one of these Michelin-starred restaurants, do you think that the restaurant itself would shut that shit down? Or do you think as a Nashvilleian, I should shut that shit down myself?
I'm a firm believer that if you have the camera facing forward, I care what you think. But if it's facing at you, I don't care nearly as much. That's just me being an old curmudgeon. I mean, it's okay to take pictures of your food. That's great. Taking pictures of you eating your food doesn't really inform me very much.
Right.
And we are a city, especially now that we are Michelin covered, we need and deserve better restaurant criticism. And that includes me. I'm not going to be an anonymous critic in this town. I was born here. It's too late. I'm not gonna dress up. I've already got a beard. What am I gonna put on, a fake beard? What, a faker beard? What? So I'm not gonna disguise myself to go in, but you would think that restaurants would be frightened of being inspected or being reviewed, but a good restaurant will really welcome that. They want to know what they're doing well. They want to know what they can improve on. And that is the one thing that Michelin really brings to a city, is that it's meant to be an ongoing progression. You know, you move from 1 star to 2 stars if you're lucky. You move from the recommended list to a star. It may take 5 years, but each year you're learning and getting better and getting better. You can lose a star, and that can be tragic for a restaurant. You gain an incredible amount of business just by getting this recognition. And the more people that are trying to do their best work, the better off we are as a restaurant city. And I don't see, an Instagrammer or an influencer making a restaurant better. They certainly may draw some people in. They're not taking them to task or making proper recommendations. So I believe that good restaurants always want to improve. Even if it's a friend of mine that runs a restaurant, I will politely tell them if I think they're doing something wrong, because I would want to know. That's why I have an editor.
One thing I learned in your article is that Michelin stars go to restaurants, not the chefs. Why is that distinction important for Nashville diners to understand?
It's not as big a deal in Nashville because so many of our restaurants are chef owned or chef operated. So the chef's going to stay, Josh isn't going to leave Bastion. And if he does, it'll be just because he wants to bring in another chef that will work with him for him. The same way that Margot did the same thing. She brought in really good chefs. She's got Hadley working for her now. So what happens is a restaurant may choose, like, let's go for that Michelin. And that, if you watch The Bear, that's what Carmy did, right? Like, he was a sandwich shop. He's like, no, we're going to go for a Michelin star. We have to change everything about everything we do. We have to bring in more talent. We have to do everything more exact. We got to start using tweezers. And that's what happens. So a chef can come in and change a whole restaurant around and can make it earn a star or can make it move up a level. But if that chef leaves, the star stays behind. So it's the restaurant that earns the star. The chef may be the factor behind it, but when that chef goes somewhere else, he's starting over again. So if you hear somebody talk about, a chef that's worked in Michelin-starred kitchens all around the world, that is very rare. What they probably did was they staged for a week when they were in culinary school, and they got to peel potatoes in a Michelin-starred kitchen, which is great. You learn. I mean, that's what Carmy's cousin did, right? He spent a week staging at the nice restaurant.
That's right.
And came back as a better man. But to actually be a chef in multiple Michelin-starred kitchens, that's just a handful of people around the world that have ever done that for more than 2 or 3. I would say one thing, that when you look at who the recognized restaurants are, you can tell that the chef has a very defined sense of self, what they want their food to be. That's what gets you this kind of recognition. With Trevor at Locust, Trevor Moran, he wants to cook dumplings and razor clams and shaved Japanese ice cream and have it with a gin and tonic or a Guinness. Would I come up with that? No. Would I enjoy it? Every time I go, absolutely, I enjoy it. So, but it's his vision and it's how he wants to cook. And if he wants to do it 2 or 3 days a week and that's all he wants to do, God bless him. That's why reservations are so hard to get there.
Is there any way that us Nashvillians are going to F this up for them?
I say the only way we're going to mess it up for them is if we don't spend our dining dollars at restaurants that are part of the city, that really contribute to the city. Let me give you a little story. So I say this goes back to right at the pandemic. And if you were an independent restaurant thinking about opening in 2020, you didn't. You had the opportunity to not do it. You didn't do it. But if you were building a hotel, you were going to keep building that hotel. You don't stop building a hotel, and that is going to have a big restaurant in it somewhere. That's just how hotels work. So you're going to have a Continental in the front of the Grand Hyatt. You're going to have a Yolan at Joseph. So that meant that while the rest of local capital was sitting on the sidelines, not being invested in independent restaurants, all the investment went into hotel lobbies. So that created kind of a bubble in the air hose where there just wasn't any growth in independent restaurants. In the intervening time, property taxes went nuts. All the rents went nuts. You can't get downtown if you're an independent operator. You have to find someplace like Wedgwood, Houston, which went from 2 restaurants to 30 restaurants in 3 years. So it went from underserved to overcrowded almost immediately. So that's what they're running into. They're running into this lack of local investment, the lack of independent opportunities. And that's what we have to stand up for. And we can vote with our pocketbook. You have a choice of whether to eat out or not. When the price of gas goes up, you cannot run your car on coal. You've got to buy gas at whatever price. But when the pressures that are moving the prices of eating out go up so high, you can certainly cook at home if you know how to cook. That's what we're up against right now. It doesn't mean the whole restaurant industry is going to collapse, but there's certainly going to be some culling out there. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be some of your favorite old reliables.
Well, if you could give Nashvillians one rule of thumb for navigating this new era of attention here on Nashville, what would it be?
I would say think of a restaurant that you love or a restaurant that you used to love but haven't been to in a long time, and then go eat there. Tomorrow is not promised for anyone in this industry right now, and you might as well go to a place you love, right? Because I know they'd love to see you.
Well, now we have to turn our attention to another article you wrote this month for The Scene, where your first sentence read, "We've lost another good one, Nashville." Tell us about the closing of Pastaria.
Yeah, it's been a tough start to the year here in Nashville. I mean, multiple restaurants have already gone under. It happened fairly suddenly. Pastaria has been in one city for just about 9 years. And they just announced it within a day or two of closing. Now, I had heard through the grapevine that they'd been telling some of their best customers and that they had told their employees to give them a little notice. But it was really abrupt. There wasn't a chance to go back and have that last supper there. And personally, I had my own regret because I didn't take my own advice and go eat at a place that I loved and hadn't been to in a while. And I had 2 opportunities to go in December with very specific things that we wanted to do. We really wanted to have some of their bolognese because I just love that bolognese. And we, in my household, we do something called good pizza and little Cokes, which is a tradition. You wait until the tree is up. You don't feel like doing anything else to the house. You don't feel like cooking. You go buy a pizza that's better than the pizza you normally buy, and you get some Cokes out of the little glass bottles because they taste better. And so we were going to go to Pastaria and pick up a pizza there, and we got lazy and we just Uber Eats a bad pizza, and then 2 weeks later it was too late. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson for everybody to take heed right now. And also, I mean, the chef Jared Kraft there, it seemed he genuinely cared about Nashville, and he provided community dinners. He taught pasta classes. Does it feel like an extra punch in the gut after all he did for us in this city, and this is how we repay him?
I mean, he'll be fine. He's got 9 restaurants in St. Louis, but the fact that he gave an inordinate amount of time to Nashville when he only had 1 restaurant here, he was doing events for The Scene, doing events for Nashville Food and Wine before he even had a restaurant here. He wanted to ingratiate himself in the community, and he loved making the trip down here. Just a genuinely nice guy. And whenever reached out to him to help out with Dining Out for Life or to teach a class for university school evening classes that I helped to recruit chefs for that, he was just always really willing. I don't know if you've seen it. He's a big supporter of the St. Louis soccer team up there. He takes pizzas to the supporters section for every game. And there was some game where St. Louis won in this dramatic goal, and I can't remember if it was to win the League Cup or something like that. But in the background, you see Jared standing there with like 20 pizza boxes stacked as high as he could carry. just always in the right place doing the right thing.
Right before the holidays, you also wrote about Dalt's closing and moving to new ownership. Dalt's is one that I, as a child, would often ask if we could go to adults because I thought it was called adults and only adults were allowed, but they let little children like myself go. And we would go there after church. We would go there We'd have our special day with my mom right before school started and do all of our school shopping. And then I would choose adults to go to and get a root beer float. So when I saw that it was closing and then moving to new ownership, it was quite personal as well. Are you excited about Dalt's move to new ownership?
I think it's a good thing. For one thing, I learned that there's not an apostrophe in Dalt's. So that was pretty good after 30 years for me to figure that out when I was writing about it. So when I heard it was closing, I just immediately anticipated the gnashing of teeth. There's we can't have good things in Nashville. I want to move. This place is turning awful. And so I always want to ask those people, okay, when's the last time you ate at Dalt's? So Marie, when was the last time you ate at Dalt's?
After my father's memorial service, we went to Dalt's for root beer floats in honor of my dad. But that's been over a year since I'd been back.
Yeah, I've been there since then, and I can tell you it wasn't very good.
You know what, Chris? I'm glad you said that because we had a horrendous experience. It wasn't good. However, my nephew had never had a root beer float, and now at 7 years old, that is his favorite thing to order. So we introduced him to this grandiose dessert.
Well, and you didn't start him at the top of the mountain either, so that's good. When Max and Benjamin Goldberg, who are helping to revitalize the restaurant, I hope they know someone that has the recipe for the French fries, because it had apparently been forgotten in the last 10 years because they weren't nearly as good as those celery salt fries that I grew up on. So I think they really will try and revitalize it. Not everybody remembers, but Merchants downtown has been a fixture. That building has been a fixture since early 20th century. And it's been a restaurant fixture for at least 20 years, and it was closing. And Max and Ben swooped in and saved that restaurant as well. And it was because their memories, their family going there, and they ran it until there was a fire. They're going to treat Dalt's with the respect that a cherished heirloom restaurant deserves. And their goal is to turn it into kind of Cheers for West Nashville. I can see that being a great stop, before a trip to Trader Joe's.
Right, exactly. And I did appreciate that they invited fans of Dalt's to send in memories and photos and stories. You can email that at hello@eatatdalts.com.
No apostrophe.
Oh, no apostrophe. That's right. So maybe I should write in and tell them how I thought it was adults and only for adults, but they made exceptions for me as a child.
I think they'd want to know.
And then, like we said earlier, we're not even that far into 2026, but we're seeing Hillsborough Village's Supper Club close, 404 Kitchen, Gertie's Whiskey Bar. They've all announced. What, in your opinion, Chris, do you think is happening here in Nashville?
So, Maureen, do you know what a triple net lease is?
No.
That's fine. No, you're not supposed to. But
nope. Okay, good.
A triple net lease is what most restaurants operate under. And I tell people, if you don't control your real estate, it's going to be tough to stay open in this town. Because a triple net means not only you're responsible for your rent, but you're also responsible for the property insurance, the property taxes, and the maintenance, all of which are skyrocketing. So if you think, rent is going to go what rent's going to do, you've probably signed a lease that may be set in with escalators, has a 10-year cap, but insurance is not set, and insurance is certainly going up. And property taxes, those bills are just now coming due with the new assessment. So you might see a restaurant that was paying $12,000 suddenly paying $50,000, and you cannot raise your prices to make that. And the reason that the restaurants are feeling so pinched is, for good or for bad, property taxes, they want to estimate the best use of the property. For me, there's no better use of a property than a cinder block building that happens to have Arnold's inside of it. But across the street, there's a 15-story mixed-use commercial residential that could be where Arnold's is too. To an assessor, that plot of land could be bringing in that much extra revenue. To me, the best use is my favorite meat and three in the world. But I would understand why they have to look at it that way, and also why the Arnold's may have been trying to sell it for a long time, because they're going to make bank if they sell that and they can open somewhere else.
And what is happening to Arnold's? I saw that it was closing again.
I never know. I think they've sold it 2 or 3 times and not sold it 2 or 3 times. And I know that Khalil's been looking at some other properties to do some other things. But as far as I know, you can still go get the meatloaf. So
that's right, baby.
Maybe I'll go there for lunch today. Yeah.
I'll see you there. So what you just described also, is that what happened to Pastaria?
Pastaria, yeah, I think they were in their ninth year. It used to be I could guess when a restaurant was going to close by when they'd been open for 10 years because they just couldn't up for another lease. That's what happened to Josephine. There was nothing wrong with Josephine as a restaurant. Fantastic place. But when Andy Little saw what was going to happen to his expenses, he was unwilling to cut his quality to be able to keep a proper plate cost to take the same clientele and treat them right. You know, he didn't want to become a high-end steakhouse. He wanted to be able to do his food well, and he just couldn't based on the economics of it. So Pastario, I think in the ninth year, they might could have limped through another year of a lease, but when you see, you can imagine what property taxes are doing in one city because there's buildings popping up in that same complex. So there's pretty clear comps to what his property tax should be.
All right, let's try to look into the future now. We know that Margot Cafe will be closing in June of this year. Fido's closing in 2028. These are Nashville legends. What is your prediction of what's to come?
Well, those two are a little different. In my opinion, these are the absolute best ways for a restaurant to close. You know, to close on the owner's terms after a good long run with plenty of notice for friends to come in, say goodbye, and current employees to find new gigs. I mean, they gave plenty of warning. Margot's got until June. Fido's got until 2028. I can't even guess what Margot and Heather are going to make selling that prime piece of property. That was an old gas station, and it's at the corner of 5 Points. But I do know that they would probably have to work into their 80s to earn that much money running a restaurant. So I wish them the best. They deserve every bit of this. I hope whatever goes there is thoughtful and beneficial to the community. I will miss Margot. I will miss her food. I'm sure Hadley will land somewhere cooking someplace and will do the great job he's been doing. With Bob Bernstein at Fido, he had been going through extending his lease, and he had the opportunity to just do a 2-year extension as opposed to signing up for another 10 because I don't think he's in it for another 10. So because he had that chance to do a 2-year extension, he was able to do this gentle, long goodbye. And everybody can say we weren't surprised. We got to do what we loved in the place we loved it. I mean, I've been going there since it was a pet shop. Jones Pet Shop was really where we went. And he'll still have Bongo Java over on Belmont. So it's not creating quite the same hole in our hearts and our stomachs that some of these other losses are. But I don't see a lot of restaurants having that kind of soft landing coming. You have to either own your real estate, like I said, or have a plan that has already made allowances for when you want to get out of the business. And that means how are we going to be able to pay rising costs until it's time to close? I'm only halfway kidding when I say that I fully expect to hear that they're opening a Mediterranean cafe in the bathroom of an Italian sandwich shop in Wedgwood, Houston, because we got plenty of both. And, we're just going to keep opening another one. I think it's going to be like that old Yogi Berra joke, nobody goes there anymore because it's so crowded. Right. I think that's what Wedgwood Houston is going to become. I feel like they've grossly overestimated the disposable income of people that are 25 to 35 years old, and that's who should be filling your restaurants. I don't know that we're going to, the conventioneers, they're already eating downtown. They're not coming out to independent restaurants in Wedgwood Houston. They're going to steakhouses, and we might just need to wall off downtown as like a zombie exclusion zone and let it govern itself and have its own little economy. Then the rest of us can just focus again on what it's like to live here.
I love that idea, actually.
Somebody once asked me what I would do if somebody gave me $2 million to open a restaurant in Nashville. Honestly, I think I'd probably just open a Chipotle in Germantown and put $1 million in my pocket because I don't think there's room for a lot more different and creative restaurants anymore. I think
right.
Serve up some bowls and make a little cash.
Well, you know how to make the money, Chris. You understand it. You understand.
I wouldn't
Nashville
be proud
like
of
nobody
it. No,
else.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Right, but you make a good living off of it. Well, because we want to leave on a positive note, since you have your ear to the ground, what are you most excited about? Speaking of predictions for this year.
Okay, I'm going to be completely selfish here because I can almost see this restaurant from my house. But the folks behind Barrel Proof have opened a little boutique hotel in Hillsborough Village called the Chloe, 19-room restaurant.
Oh.
It's in 2 beautiful old houses that used to house music recording studios. So they're right there next to the Moxie and the post office. And in this place, they've got a little 40-seat serving kind of quasi-Creole food. But for a 19-room hotel, they've got 3 bars in this hotel, which has got to be like the best guest room to bar ratio in town.
Wow.
And it's at the end of my street, and I can get a proper Sazerac there. There's street parking, and I can't imagine it's from the people at Barrel Proof, whose bar I love. That's the thing I'm excited about right now.
That's super
So
exciting.
go to the Chloe.
Folks, don't tell anybody about this. Let's keep this with the locals. But yeah, that sounds incredible. And thank you so much for the articles that you wrote. You're speaking truth. I'm going to put his articles in our show notes so everyone can read those. Thanks for your honesty. And again, let's all go out there and support local. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!